Big Sugar is a 104-mile gravel race, and it starts in Bentonville, Arkansas. Then we actually head north and cross over into Missouri. It's the final stop in the Life Time Grand Prix, and really the hallmark of this course is that it's very chunky, and it has steep climbs, and it's known for its off-camber, twisty descents. Hello everyone, thanks for following along. This year's been a lot of fun to try some new videos and kind of focus on long form storytelling and documentaries that we've put out. This video is going to be a little different. We're going to try some race recaps, and so the vibe and feel of the video is definitely more of just kind of raw recaps of the racing. So I'd be curious to see what you guys think, and if you like this, if you find it valuable, then we'll keep doing it. So. The course was extremely dry because Northwest Arkansas has not received much rain at all in the last month or two leading into this. And so I knew coming into this race it would be very important to have my equipment dialed, and that's ultimately why I stayed home and didn't do Worlds and just dedicated a little bit more time into preparation for Big Sugar. So, big tires and bike setup was all the conversation at this event, and most of the top racers were on mountain bike setup. So I ended up running a 2-2, both front and rear tire on my Checkmate from Trek, and it was perfect. I had no flats. I did a lot of testing leading into this for evaluating aero wheels versus non-aero wheels, mountain bike versus a semi-slick tire. And ultimately, I was really happy with my setup, which is not easy to stay at this race because many mechanicals take riders out, and that's like a theme at both Big Sugar and at Unbound. Big Sugar is such a special event to me because this is my hometown now, and I literally probably rode the course, 6 to 8 times in the last 2 to 3 weeks into this. I kind of said I am one with the course, and I knew every rock, every corner. When I ride this course, whether it's in training or recon or while I'm racing, it's just so special because I have so many good memories here and ultimately where my career took off. Coming into this event, it was really interesting because the Grand Prix has really evolved, and the level of competition has evolved, and the second through third place, or the podium spots for the Grand Prix overall, were not secured. It was within 1 or 2 points. So I was sitting second coming into this event, and then 1 point behind me was Alexis, and then 1 point behind her was Melissa. So the two of them are historically very strong, and I knew that I needed to beat both of them on a race day in order to maintain my second place position in the overall. I thought a lot about strategy and what to do leading into the race, but ultimately decided with my coach that it was best to view the race as just racing this as if I wanted to win instead of playing the points game and doing the math. And I think sometimes if you are racing for an overall position or, you just have to be so-and-so, it kind of takes your mindset out of the racer mode that is naturally in all of us. So yeah, the race starts and you have about 6 to 7 miles of pavement. My original plan was to kind of conserve energy and kind of sit in and watch what people were doing. I realized early that the peloton had a bit more nervous energy, I would say. I was right next to Hannah Otto and she almost went down. She had a really good save there. But I realized in that moment that I wanted to be in the front position and just be in a safer area. As soon as we hit the gravel, I also realized that the dust was worse than expected. Everything was dry and loose. I knew that pre-riding, but when you're actually racing in a pack, the amount of dust that was being kicked up was incredible. And it was also just hard to see in front of me. You couldn't even see a couple wheel lengths in front of you with just one rider, let alone a group of 10, 20 riders in front of you. I also could tell early on that the race was not going to be mellow. Sophia did an early attack as soon as we hit the gravel, 7 miles in. Melissa was also attacking frequently, and I knew early that you just had to be at the front if you wanted to catch any early moves or breakaways. I will say there was an early breakaway, I think of about 8 riders. Things were so strung out through the gravel. The gravel here is not conducive to group riding. So even if you want to be in a pack, it's just so strung out. So there was a section where we got away and it wasn't a big gap and it wasn't reflected in the timing because there wasn't a timing mat on there, but it was just a small gap that had happened, and the group that had Sarah Sturm and Stella and some of these other riders rejoined with us heading into the first feed. After that first feed, things were really mellow, and everyone's kind of looking around, taking gels, waiting for the fireworks that are about to go off, because there are a series of climbs that happen after Pineville that are pretty grueling. They're steep, they're loose. After each climb, there's then a subsequent off-camber descent going into another climb. And these aren't rolling. These are like 3 to 5 minute punchy climbs with a flat plateau section at the top that you have to power through, and then you go into the off-camber descent. This section, things again started to get strung out, and it was clear early on that Melissa and Sophia were the ones that were responding to every attack that Melissa was throwing, essentially, and we're setting the pace on a lot of the climbs and a lot of the day. From those 4 climbs, our group then again regrouped. I think we had probably about 10 or 12 riders in that section. And there's like a long 20-minute rock bed section that's super chunky. It's a gradual uphill, and it's just a bit of a slog, to be honest. During that time, it was interesting because I saw Sarah go up to the front and talk with Sophia, and I didn't really know what was happening. And then Sarah went up the road. What happened was Sarah flatted. And since Sarah and Sophia are both on Specialized bikes, they have somewhat of a teamwork functioning. And we saw this at Unbound too. And it's just worth noting because this is how different tactics are playing a role. But what happened is Sarah pulled off to the side of the road and was repairing her flat. And Sophia would go to the front and then basically slow the group down. So it's just an example of some of the tactics that are starting. So after Sarah flatted and then came back to our group, from there our group stayed together pretty much until checkpoint 2. We did have a mild separation that occurred after a steeper climb heading into that, so it did weed our group down to about 8 to 10 riders. Coming into checkpoint 2, there's a very fast pavement descent that you're going over 40 miles per hour, and every year someone misses that turn. So I tend to go to the back of the group during that section just to make sure that I'm not leading everyone in. If people want to miss a turn, like, that's on them, and it helps kind of save energy potentially. So I think Stella was leading the group, and she missed a turn, and the group kind of knew right away, so they were braking and yelling, but I just kind of slid right into the course, and we go into this private property double track. During this time, I kind of knew this was a good position for me to be in because there's a very steep climb after you exit the feed, and it's pretty gruesome that late in the race. It doesn't seem that special when you look at a map. So I just went through the feed. I wasn't attacking, but I was just keeping a steady pace, knowing that I would be able to conserve more energy in that section since they were chasing to get caught back up after the missed turn. At this point in the race, there was about 8 of us that made it through that checkpoint. And I kind of knew, all right, everyone in this group is strong. I think it's going to stay together until the end, until the sprint, because attacks were being made, but everything was always closed and the group was sticking together. And that was kind of how I thought the race was going to unfold. But probably about 15-ish miles from the finish, there is one more descent that's pretty rocky. You cross like a little rock bed, and then you have a steep climb after that. And then subsequent to that section, there's a long amount of pavement or more champagne, like easy gravel after that. So there was also a headwind, so I didn't think anything would really stick after that section, and I made the mistake. I entered 4th wheel, so it was Melissa, Sophia, and Cecily entering that descent together, and then I was 4th wheel. And what happened was a small gap opened on the descent, and Melissa attacked that climb. And I kind of thought to myself, well, we still have a pretty strong group. We're about to enter a lot of flat headwind, and I think it's better for me to conserve. We'll regroup, and then I'll have more energy for the finish. Unfortunately, there was a crash. Stella crashed, and then our group kind of split up. So when we exited and those three had made the attack, the small gap opened, I was looking back to work together with people, and then it was just me and Alexis. So Alexis and I traded poles, but she was kind of dying and was cracked, and then Erin came back to our group. She was also dying and cracked, and there just wasn't a lot of help. So I knew at that moment I was either going to be pulling them back with me, or I needed to attack those two riders to then try to bridge back up to the front. So tried to get them to pull and work so that I could save a little bit more energy. And then right around the same time I was getting ready to attack, a male rider came around us at a faster speed, and I knew that was the moment to take his wheel. So I made a jump to drop Alexis and Erin. And then I also knew at that point I would be securing a top 3 finish since I needed to beat Alexis. And then from there, we had probably like 10 miles where I just had to kind of motor and try to catch that front group. I had no idea what the time gap was. I didn't know if they were up the road 20 seconds or a minute. There are a lot of amateur riders that are out on course, and it's hard to tell like who's actually up the road. So I ultimately just kept telling myself, like, never give up. Keep trying, never give up, keep trying. And I just never saw them. I knew when I made that left turn onto the final climbs that I just had to keep it steady, and maybe one of those 3 would die and I would be able to catch them, but I never saw them into the line. So this result was good for 4th place on the day. And some stats for the nerds out there that like data. So 5.5 hours. My normalized power was 257 watts. My average was 228. Average heart rate 169, and got a max of 192. Average speed out there was about 19 miles per hour, and max was about 44 miles per hour. In terms of nutrition, I did consume about 100 to 110 grams of carb an hour, mostly through the form of drink mix and gels. I remember going down the finish, and I don't normally do this, but everyone has their hands out, and there's so many people at the finish, and I just kind of clapping everyone's hand. And I remember at that moment feeling really proud and just thankful for the community, thankful for my season that I've had in the Grand Prix, and ultimately just thankful to be racing. I wasn't able to race earlier in the year, and I've learned during this season that you can't take any result, any race, or any ride for granted. So even though I want the most out of myself and I want to perform and I want to be winning, I also recognize you have to be proud of your effort on that day. And I was proud, even though I wanted more. It's this balance of giving yourself grace as an athlete and just enjoying the process of being out there.